When Chinese-American entrepreneur Fu Ping published her memoirs late last year, the book soon attracted controversy, particularly here in China. Entitled Bend Not Break, A Life in Two Worlds, it tells the story of Fu's early life in China during the Cultural Revolution, and later her reinvention as a highly successful entrepreneur after being granted asylum in the U.S. in 1984. However, many Chinese contemporaries of Fu, the co-founder and CEO of software company GeoMagic, have complained that her book is riddled with inaccuracies and outright fallacies. One that has been widely derided is her description of someone being torn apart limb by 4 horses driven by Red Guards. Fu also describes being taken away from her parents, abused, and then forced to work in a factory. And she says she was briefly jailed and then forced to leave China after triggering an outcry when her thesis on female infanticide was published in the People's Daily. Now, Tussle University, where Fu studied from in 1978 to 82, has been chiming in as well. On its website, the school has accused Fu of distorting facts about her time there. It says she has given both our school and country a bad reputation. Amongst the assertions, the university rejects are Fu's claims of finger-checking of female students to ensure they weren't pregnant. It says it has no record of the thesis Fu claims she wrote. It also disputes her claim that she only knew the words hello, thank you, and help when she arrived in the U.S., saying these school records show she received A's and B's in her English classes. Online, there's been quite a bit of debate on Fu's book and the university's response. So to find out what's being said here, let's check in with our researcher, Esther Dung. Okay, Esther, first of all, who are net users siding with in this debate, Fu Ping or the university?
Well, from what I can see, quite a lot of them seem to support the university version of events, and several recall their own or relatives' experiences to back up their views. A poster called 帅气魔斗 has doubts about Fu's tales of being tormented as a child during the Cultural Revolution. My mother's colleague was the niece of the biggest capitalist around at the time. Definitely a target during the Cultural Revolution, but her family was treated normally. They just had to be a bit careful. And another poster who claimed to have lived through the Cultural Revolution has this to say: I never experienced or heard of children being torn away from their parents. The Red Guards had no interest in bullying children. And the well-known Chinese exporter of intellectual frauds, Fang Zhouzi, published a report on Fu's claims in which he said that young children being forced into labor camps and dismemberment using horses were unheard of. And he even jokes dismemberment by horse would have been quite difficult to pull off, even if Red Guards was able to find 4 horses trained to do so. Fang also checked the People's Daily archives and says he found nothing regarding female infanticide in rural China. And a poster on Tianyao has a typical comment: what are you doing, Fang Zhouzi? Leave her alone. Who doesn't make things up when claiming political asylum? Cut her some slack. But even before the university statement, Fu herself had already conceded that the horse dismemberment may have been an emotional memory and was probably wrong. But even so, Fu also had some defenders. This poster, 曲水宅主, says on sina.com.cn. The contents of memoir don't have to be all strictly true as long as it's reasonable and logical. Anyway, people with literary temperaments may create illusions after being immersed in a situation for a long time. And this poster adds, Fu might have been imprisoned for a short while secretly, so there was a chance that the university and her schoolmates didn't know.
Now, in the U.S., Fu Ping is seen as quite a role model for young entrepreneurs and has been honored on several occasions. What sort of opinions do net users here have about her?
Well, I have to say, in general, she doesn't seem to be that popular, certainly in the eyes of Chinese net users. This anonymous comment on 10086.cm is a typical one. She's a traitor who has exhausted her ability to slander and fabricate things. And this poster, Cheng Yi, says, Fu is the queen of sensationalizing and does it to trick people into reading her book. And a poster from Beijing says, her achievements don't prove her innocence. There are many Chinese people who are more outstanding than her, but not as stringent as her. And for nationalist posters, Fu's main thing seemed to be there to criticize China. This poster, Lin Zhibo, says, whoever insults or slanders the motherland will never be respected anywhere. And this poster, 扑克牌 on kittynet.net, has this warning. Fu is a pitiful person who's just trying to cheat the Americans out of money. She has no idea that Chinese public intellectuals are capable of destroying her. And this poster brings a bit of amateur psychology to the debate. Successful people living under a halo tend to package themselves, knowingly or not, to be even more impressive. So touching up your resume and inventing miserable paths can happen. But again, there are some also willing to give Fu Ping the benefit of the doubt, like Shi Shiwei, who says, I guess Chinese publishers won't dare to publish Fu's memoir here and let the general public judge by themselves. And Li Fangping 律师 has this to say, even if Fu did fabricate her experiences, it doesn't mean she stained the national reputation. There were plenty of much more horrible things that went on than those she mentioned in her memoir.
Well, one last point. The university seems to be arguing, or at least implying, that because Fu Ping's thesis on rural female infanticide due to the one-child policy may not have existed, then this phenomenon didn't exist either. So do people really believe that line?
Well, there's certainly some debate about it. I'll give you some examples of the kinds of comments I've seen. This poster from Zhejiang says, in the countryside during the 80s and 90s, female infanticide was common. Some families were desperate to have a male child. Due to the one-child policy, if they give birth to a female one, they would draw her or give her away. Everyone who lives in the countryside knows this. And another poster on Sohu.com agrees. As the number of children they can have was restricted, some foolish farmers wishing to carry on the family line killed female infants. On the other hand, not everyone is so sure. This poster, Yuling Jimo, says, have you seen this with your own eyes? Do you have information about when, where, and who? Talk is cheap. But another poster does offer more than talk. He or she recounts real-life experience. When I was young, I lived close to a hospital, and I saw many babies thrown away on the riverbank, and some were born and thrown into river. Finally, we have Yipai Huyan feels that while there may have been infanticide, it wasn't necessarily all due to the government's one-child policy. Look, parents who kill their babies have no conscience and are criminals and should be punished severely. To criticize the one-child policy is simply a red herring.
Well, thanks for that, Esther. And that was China Take researcher Esther Deng with net users' reactions to Fu Ping's memoir. Next up on China Take, some of the top trending phrases on China's most popular search engines.